Indigenous tribes around the world have perfected gardening techniques that maximize harvests while minimizing labor. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced gardener, these simple yet powerful methods will help you boost your garden's productivity without the back-breaking work. Ready to grow smarter, not harder? Let's get started. 1. The cardboard trick. That stack of boxes from your online shopping addiction is about to become your garden's best friend. The cardboard trick is gardening's secret weapon against weeds, and it couldn't be simpler. Just lay flattened cardboard boxes directly over grass or weedy areas you want to transform into garden beds. Wet them down thoroughly, add a layer of compost or soil on top, and let nature do the heavy lifting. The cardboard smothers the grass and weeds underneath while gradually breaking down over several months, adding organic matter to your soil. What makes this method so brilliant is how it works with nature rather than against it. While you're busy doing literally anything else, earthworms and soil microbes are drawn to the moistened cardboard, breaking it down from below while creating tunnels that improve your soil structure. No digging, no tilling, no back pain. Just a garden bed that's ready for planting with minimal effort. Your plants will thank you for the weed-free zone, and your back will thank you for skipping the shovel work that traditional bed preparation demands. 2. Sun mapping before planting. Before rushing to put seeds in the ground, take a tip from traditional gardeners who mastered the art of observation. Sun mapping is simply spending a little time noticing how sunlight moves across your yard throughout the day. Grab your morning coffee and note which areas get early light, then check again at midday and late afternoon. Use simple markers like rocks or stakes to track sunny spots and shadow patterns across different seasons. This approach turns guesswork into garden science without any fancy equipment. Once you have mapped your sun patterns, you'll know exactly where to put sun-loving tomatoes versus shade-tolerant lettuce. That pepper plant that never produced last year? It was probably sitting in the afternoon shadow. Your herbs that kept burning up? Too much direct sunlight. When each plant lives in its perfect light conditions, you'll spend less time fighting nature and more time harvesting the rewards. Plants that get their ideal light grow stronger, produce more, and resist pests better. All because you took the time to watch the sun do its daily dance. 3. Banana peels hack. The fruit bowl staple you've been tossing in the trash is actually garden gold. Banana peels are packed with potassium, phosphorus, and other nutrients that plants crave, especially flowering and fruiting ones. The banana peel hack works in multiple ways. You can dry and grind them into a powder to mix into soil, bury them directly beneath planting holes, or make a tea by soaking chopped peels in water for a few days to create a natural liquid fertilizer. The beauty of this hack lies in its targeted delivery of exactly what your garden needs. When buried beneath tomato plants, roses, or peppers, the peels break down slowly, releasing potassium that helps with flower and fruit production. Unlike synthetic fertilizers that can burn plants if over-applied, banana peels release their goodness gradually as they decompose. Your plants get steady nutrition rather than feast or famine cycles. Plus, there's something deeply satisfying about turning kitchen waste into garden abundance. A perfect example of how gardening connects us to natural cycles, where nothing goes to waste and everything has purpose. 4. Raised beds from natural materials. Forget expensive cedar boards and hardware store kits. The most effective raised beds often come from materials already found around your property. Fallen logs, stone borders, branches woven together, or even mounded soil itself can create growing spaces that drain better and warm faster than flat ground. These natural raised beds mimic the varied topography plants encounter in wild settings, where they rarely grow in perfectly flat environments. The irregular shapes and organic materials of these beds create beneficial microclimates. The logs slowly decompose, feeding the soil while retaining moisture during dry spells. Rock borders absorb heat during the day and release it at night, extending your growing season by keeping soil warmer. The slightly elevated growing space improves drainage during wet periods, while allowing roots to reach deeper moisture during dry times. Plus, these natural raised beds become habitats for beneficial creatures like toads and ground beetles that help control garden pests. By working with materials nature provides, you create garden beds that improve over time rather than deteriorate like manufactured options, all while keeping construction waste out of landfills and money in your pocket. 5. Coffee grounds. That morning cup of motivation can pull double duty by giving your garden a boost too. Coffee grounds offer a trifecta of garden benefits that most plants love. Rich in nitrogen, slightly acidic, and with a texture that improves soil structure, coffee grounds work wonders when mixed into garden beds or added to compost. They're particularly valuable for acid-loving plants like blueberries, azaleas, and many vegetables, helping to adjust soil pH while feeding beneficial soil microorganisms. Beyond their nutritional value, coffee grounds serve as a mild pest deterrent. The texture and scent seem to discourage slugs and snails from crossing coffee-dusted soil, creating a protective barrier around vulnerable seedlings. The grounds also attract earthworms, nature's soil tillers, who love to feed on this organic matter while aerating your soil and leaving behind nutrient-rich castings. Just remember that moderation matters. A thin layer worked into the soil works better than thick piles that can form water-repelling crusts. 6. Soil testing with local plants. Forget complicated pH testing kits and soil analysis. The plants already growing in your yard are telling you everything you need to know about your soil conditions. This approach uses nature's indicators to guide your planting decisions. Do you see clovers thriving in one area? That spot likely has nitrogen-poor soil, as clover fixes its own nitrogen. Lots of dandelions? You're looking at compacted soil that needs loosening. Moss growing abundantly indicates acidic, shady conditions, perfect for blueberries or rhododendrons. These plant indicators save both time and resources while connecting you more deeply to your garden's ecosystem. Instead of fighting existing conditions, you can select garden plants that will thrive in similar environments to the natives already growing there. If chickweed grows vigorously in one corner of your yard, that's where leafy greens like spinach and lettuce will likely flourish too, as they prefer similar soil conditions. Plants that naturally thrive in your area also attract local pollinators and beneficial insects already adapted to your region. By reading these botanical clues, you're tapping into wisdom that goes back generations. Gardening with the land, rather than imposing your will upon it. 7. Morning watering rule. The time of day you water has more impact on plant health than most gardeners realise. The morning watering rule is simple but powerful. Get your garden wet when the rooster crows, not when the crickets chirp. Water applied in early morning hours reaches plant roots efficiently before the day's heat causes evaporation, giving plants the moisture they need to withstand hot afternoons. The leaves that get splashed have plenty of daylight hours to dry completely, preventing the fungal diseases that thrive in damp, dark conditions. This timing trick strengthens your plant's natural rhythms too. Just as they're waking up to begin photosynthesis for the day, they receive the water they need for this energy-creating process. Morning-watered plants develop stronger, more drought-resistant root systems because they learn to take up water efficiently and store it for the day ahead. The practice saves water and money since less moisture is lost to evaporation, and it saves time since slower morning watering means better absorption and less runoff. All these benefits from simply adjusting when you turn on the hose, proving once again that smart gardening is about working smarter, not harder or more expensively. 8. Using smoked or fermented seeds. Long before seed catalogues and garden centres, traditional growers developed methods to boost germination and plant health starting right at the seed. Lightly smoking seeds or soaking them in fermented solutions might sound like garden witchcraft, but science backs up these ancient practices. The smoke treatment breaks down seed coats and stimulates germination compounds, while fermentation helps remove germination inhibitors naturally present on some seeds. These treatments essentially wake up the seeds, telling them it's time to grow while giving them protection against common soil pathogens. The real magic happens when these treated seeds sprout. Plants from smoked seeds often show increased drought tolerance. Seeds fermented in herbal solutions pick up beneficial microbes that continue to protect the developing seedling as it grows. Unlike chemical seed treatments, these traditional methods use materials readily available in most kitchens and gardens. Fruit juices for fermentation or small amounts of plant material for smoking. The results are seeds that germinate more consistently and produce more resilient plants. 9. Garlic spray formula. Nature's own pest control comes in the form of a simple spray that packs a powerful punch against garden invaders. The garlic spray formula creates an all-purpose garden defender that costs pennies compared to store-bought options. Simply soak crushed garlic cloves. The more pungent, the better, in a small amount of vegetable oil for 24 hours, then strain and mix with water and a drop of mild soap. This potent solution works through multiple mechanisms. The sulfur compounds in garlic disrupt insect feeding patterns, while the oil helps the spray stick to plant surfaces. What makes this formula remarkably effective is how it targets pests while sparing beneficial insects. Most soft-bodied pests like aphids and spider mites can't tolerate the sulfur compounds. But pollinators like bees aren't bothered as long as you spray in the evening when they're not active. Unlike chemical pesticides that create stronger pest generations through resistance, garlic spray works through physical deterrents that pests can't develop immunity against. The formula also has mild fungicidal properties, helping prevent powdery mildew and other common leaf diseases. By keeping a bottle of this spray on hand throughout the growing season, you create a garden defense system that's effective, economical, and environmentally sound. And guess what? A true triple win for the lazy gardener looking for big results with minimal effort. 10. Planting with the rain. Mother Nature offers the perfect planting timer, the rain forecast. Traditional gardeners around the world wait for rain before sowing, and this patience pays enormous dividends. Seeds planted just before or during gentle rainfall receive perfectly distributed moisture that triggers germination under ideal conditions. The rain naturally settles soil around seeds at the perfect depth without compaction, creating that elusive seed-to-soil contact that commercial growers strive for with expensive equipment. This rain-timed planting method transforms your garden's beginning stages. Seeds germinate more uniformly when rain planted, creating stands of plants that mature together for easier harvesting. The natural rainfall pattern also encourages deeper root development from the start, as young roots follow the water's path downward rather than staying near the surface as they often do with shallow hand watering. The benefits continue throughout the plant's life cycle. These rain-started seedlings typically develop stronger drought resistance and better stability against wind and storms. This approach requires a bit more planning and weather watching, but the results, stronger plants with minimal watering needs, make it worth scheduling your planting day around the forecast rather than your weekend convenience. The garden that begins with rain often finishes with abundance, proving again that working with natural cycles beats fighting against them. 11. Three Sisters Method. The Three Sisters Method might be the original companion planting system, perfected by Indigenous farmers centuries before garden blogs existed. This brilliant growing technique combines corn, beans, and squash in a relationship where each plant supports the others in a natural partnership. The corn grows tall and strong, creating living poles for the beans to climb. The beans, in turn, pull nitrogen from the air and convert it into soil food that feeds the hungry corn and squash. Meanwhile, the broad squash leaves spread across the ground, creating living mulch that suppresses weeds and keeps soil moisture from evaporating in the summer heat. What makes this method truly exceptional is how it transforms three separate crops into one unified growing system that produces more food with less work. The physical structure mimics a natural ecosystem rather than orderly garden rows, creating beneficial microclimates that shelter plants from harsh weather while confusing pests that prefer monoculture plantings. The Three Sisters also creates perfect habitat for beneficial insects and pollinators who find shelter among the diverse plant structure. When harvest time arrives, you've grown a balanced meal in a single bed: protein-rich beans, carbohydrate-packed corn, and vitamin-loaded squash, all from a planting method that required minimal maintenance through the growing season. It's garden synergy at its finest, where the whole truly produces more than the sum of its parts. 12. Growing vines on trees. Why build expensive trellises when nature provides the perfect climbing structures? Growing vines on trees or established shrubs brings your garden into the vertical dimension without requiring a single nail or piece of string. Runner beans winding up a small apple tree, ornamental squash climbing through a lilac bush, or grapes decorating an old oak create layers of productivity in the same footprint. The woody host provides structural support while the vines contribute additional harvests in what would otherwise be unused airspace. This vertical integration goes beyond mere space efficiency. The relationship often benefits both plants when properly matched. The climbing vines can provide cooling shade for the lower trunk of trees during hot summers, while deciduous vines that die back in winter allow full sun to reach fruit trees during dormant periods when they need winter sunlight. The falling leaves from both plants create mulch exactly where it's needed, building soil directly in the root zone. Many vine and tree combinations also create perfect habitat niches for beneficial insects and birds that help with pest control throughout your garden. By thinking beyond the flat plane of traditional gardens and into the tree canopy, you create multi-story growing spaces that mimic natural forest edges. Some of the most productive ecosystems on Earth, your garden expands upward rather than outward, giving you more harvest without requiring more land or back-breaking bed preparation. 13. Fire ash distribution. Long before commercial fertilizers existed, traditional gardeners knew the power of wood ash in waking up garden soils. Fire ash distribution takes the remains of your fireplace, wood stove, or even backyard fire pit and transforms them into free mineral supplements for your garden. Rich in potassium, calcium, and trace minerals, wood ash serves as nature's own slow-release fertilizer that's particularly beneficial for fruit-bearing plants. A light dusting worked into soil before planting or sprinkled around established plants provides a mineral boost that improves flowering, fruiting, and overall plant resilience. The magic of ash goes beyond merely feeding plants. It changes soil chemistry in ways that benefit entire garden ecosystems. The natural alkalinity of wood ash helps neutralize acidic soils, making nutrients more available to plants that prefer neutral conditions. Many pest insects, particularly soft-bodied ones like slugs and snails, avoid crossing ash-treated areas, creating a protective barrier around vulnerable plants. The fine particles also improve soil structure when worked into heavy clay, helping create the crumbly, friable soil texture that plant roots love to explore. Just remember the gardener's rule of ash application. A little goes a long way. A light dusting is beneficial, while heavy applications can throw soil pH too far toward alkaline. 14. Spiral herb gardens. The herb spiral might be the perfect example of working smarter, not harder, in the garden. This three-dimensional growing space packs enormous planting area into a small footprint while creating multiple microclimates all within arm's reach. Built as a gradually rising spiral of stone, brick, or soil, this structure provides different growing conditions as it winds upward. The top stays drier and receives more sun, perfect for Mediterranean herbs like rosemary and thyme that thrive in arid conditions. The middle sections offer balanced moisture and light for basil and sage, while the lower edges retain more moisture for mint and parsley. What makes the spiral truly brilliant is how it reflects natural landscapes where different plants thrive in different niches, all within a single, compact structure right outside your kitchen door. The stone or brick materials used to build the spiral store heat during the day and release it slowly at night, extending your growing season by protecting plants from early frosts. Water applied at the top filters down through the system, creating a natural irrigation pattern that uses gravity rather than sprinklers. The vertical nature of the spiral also makes harvesting and maintenance easier on your back and knees, as many herbs can be reached without bending over. With dozens of plants growing in just a few square feet, the herb spiral delivers maximum flavour with minimum space and effort. A perfect example of how thoughtful design beats hard work in the productive garden. 15. Bird attraction method. Forget the pesticides and welcome the winged workforce to your garden. The bird attraction method transforms garden pest control from a chore you handle to a service nature provides. By strategically adding bird-friendly features to your garden, shallow water sources, native berry shrubs, birdhouses sized for insect eaters like wrens and chickadees, and a few perching spots overlooking your vegetable beds, you create habitat that attracts nature's own pest control specialist. Single nesting pair of chickadees can consume up to 9,000 caterpillars while raising their young, providing targeted pest management exactly when garden plants are most vulnerable. The brilliance of this method lies in its self-reinforcing nature. As birds discover your garden as a food source, they return regularly, bringing their appetite for insects with them. Unlike chemical controls that kill indiscriminately, birds target moving pests while leaving beneficial insects that hide or mimic plant parts. The birds also contribute to garden fertility through their droppings, which add nitrogen and minerals exactly where plants can use them. Even their nest-building activities help with natural pruning as they collect small twigs and plant materials. By creating these bird partnerships, you establish a pest management system that works even when you're not in the garden, costs nothing to maintain once established, and becomes more effective each year as bird families return to their proven feeding grounds. 16. Buried clay jar irrigation. Ancient wisdom meets modern water conservation in this remarkably simple irrigation technique. The buried clay jar method, sometimes called olla irrigation, uses unglazed ceramic vessels as underground water reservoirs that deliver moisture directly to plant roots. Terracotta pots with their drainage holes sealed are buried up to their necks in garden beds, then filled with water. The slightly porous nature of unglazed clay allows water to slowly seep through the pot walls, creating a perfect zone of moisture in the surrounding soil that plants can access as needed. What makes this method revolutionary is how it transforms watering from a frequent surface chore to an occasional deep reservoir refill. The clay pots deliver water underground at root level, eliminating the evaporation that wastes up to 70% of surface water in hot weather. Plants develop healthier root systems as they grow toward the consistent moisture source, rather than spreading shallow roots across the surface. Since water moves through the clay only when surrounding soil is drier than the pot contents, plants receive moisture based on actual need, rather than your watering schedule. This leads to healthier plants that are more drought-resistant while dramatically reducing water consumption, often cutting garden water use by half or more. The pots need refilling only once or twice a week, even in hot weather, freeing you from daily watering chores while your plants enjoy perfect soil moisture. It's water-wise gardening at its best, using gravity and natural materials rather than timers and technology. 17. Intensive planting squares. The intensive planting square method revolutionizes how we think about garden space, replacing long rows with compact, high-yield growing blocks. This approach divides the garden into small squares, typically 1 to 4 feet on each side, and then packs these spaces with plants at optimal spacing for mature size, rather than following traditional row recommendations. The result is a densely planted garden, where bare soil disappears beneath a living canopy of productive plants. 4 lettuce plants might occupy 1 square, while 16 carrots grow in another, and a single cabbage fills a 3rd square. The magic happens when these tightly planted squares create their own supportive microclimate. The close spacing of plants creates living mulch that shades soil, dramatically reducing both weed pressure and water evaporation. The plant leaves touching each other limit weed access to sunlight while maintaining higher humidity levels around all plants. This intensive approach delivers several times more harvest per square foot than traditional row planting while actually reducing work. There's simply less space for weeds to grow and less soil exposed to drying winds and sun. The square system also makes succession planting more intuitive, as you replace entire blocks rather than portions of rows, creating a garden that produces continuously throughout the growing season. By thinking in blocks rather than rows, you maximize productivity while minimizing both the space needed and the work involved. 18. Garden in pockets. The pocket gardening method proves that you don't need perfect soil, or much soil at all, to grow abundant food. This approach creates small growing zones amid otherwise challenging conditions, like rocky ground, steep slopes, or hardpan soil. Rather than trying to improve an entire garden area, you focus your energy on creating scattered pockets of rich growing medium exactly where plants will grow. Using a digging bar or post hole digger, you create holes 12 to 24 inches deep and wide, then fill these with high-quality compost and soil amendments. These pockets become fertile islands in otherwise difficult terrain, allowing you to grow productive plants without amending the entire area. The pocket approach brilliantly concentrates your resources exactly where they will benefit plants most. Instead of spreading compost thinly across a large area, you create zones of exceptional fertility right in the root zone. Each pocket tends to retain moisture better than the surrounding soil, creating favourable growing conditions even in dry areas. The undisturbed soil between pockets actually serves as pathways that require no maintenance, while the growing happens vertically from the pockets. This method is particularly valuable for establishing perennial plants in challenging locations. Fruit trees, berry bushes, and herbs can thrive for years in well-prepared pockets even when surrounding soil is poor. It's garden development in 3 dimensions rather than 2, using depth to compensate for surface limitations. 19. Compost layering. Forget complicated compost recipes and tedious turning schedules. Compost layering brings simplicity to the art of soil building by mimicking how organic matter naturally breaks down in forest environments. Rather than maintaining separate compost piles that need turning and eventual spreading, this method builds soil directly where you will use it through alternating layers of carbon-rich materials like leaves, cardboard, or straw, and nitrogen-rich materials like food scraps, grass clippings, or manure. You simply build these layers directly on garden beds during the off-season or in areas being prepared for future planting. The brilliance of layered composting lies in how it combines multiple garden tasks into one streamlined process. Soil building, weed suppression, moisture conservation, and even pest management happen simultaneously as the layers break down. The alternating materials create ideal habitat for decomposer organisms, from earthworms to beneficial fungi, who do the work of turning these raw ingredients into garden gold. Unlike traditional composting that requires physical turning, the layered approach lets time do the work. By planting season, the bottom layers have transformed into rich humus, while the top layers serve as mulch that continues to feed the soil food web. This approach saves countless hours of wheelbarrowing finished compost while building deeper fertility throughout the entire bed rather than just the surface layer. It's truly composting for the lazy gardener. Less work with better results, all by letting nature's processes happen at their own perfect pace. 20. Wild plant integration. The wild plant integration method brings the wisdom of natural ecosystems into your cultivated garden space. Instead of fighting to eliminate all volunteer plants, this approach selectively allows and even encourages beneficial wild species to grow alongside your cultivated crops. Edible wild greens like lamb's quarters or purslane might be allowed to grow between rows of garden vegetables, while medicinal plants like yarrow or plantain become permanent garden residents in border areas. Native flowering plants that attract pollinators are welcomed rather than weeded, creating habitat that supports both wild biodiversity and your cultivated crops. This integration transforms garden maintenance from a constant battle against nature to a selective editing of what's already growing naturally. Many wild plants actually improve garden conditions. Deep-rooted species like dandelions pull nutrients from subsoil layers and make them available to neighbouring garden plants when their leaves decompose. Wild plants often attract different beneficial insects than cultivated varieties, broadening your garden's pest management team. Most importantly, these wild plants are naturally adapted to your local conditions, thriving without the water, fertiliser and coddling that many garden varieties demand. They fill gaps in the growing space while requiring almost no care, creating a garden that's part cultivated and part wild, the best of both worlds. Will you be trying out these hacks? Let us know what you would love us to discuss next in the comments section. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that already.